Hi, I'm Parker Miley,
And I'm Tim Benjamin.
and this is the Rage Podcast, where today we are going to do, it can't be called a critique, but we will be looking at one of Netflix's newest shows that have come out in recent days.
And before we even say the name of it, we want to be very clear this is not an endorsement.
Yes.
I personally have not seen it. Parker watched it and was telling me about it, and I watched a trailer for it and read a little about it. We want to be very clear. Don't say, hey, these guys recommended the show, we're going to run out and watch it, because we ain't doing that.
Yeah, not a recommendation.
In fact, we're not doing that for any other reason than it stars Melissa McCarthy, which we would never do that to you, because we feel you experience enough hell in this world as it is, so we're not going to put that on you. But, so anyways, the name of the show is...
God's Favorite Idiot.
Don't go watch it.
Don't watch it.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's get all that disclaimer out. Not endorsing the show. I watched it. Why? It was rainy here in Ohio the last couple of weeks, and I was bored. All right, so I watched it. And do I regret it? Well, since I'm getting content for the Rage, I can't say I truly regret it.
This may be the only good thing that this show has produced. Yes.
But so here's what the show is. All right, so it's called God's Favorite Idiot. There's just some average Joe guy who works for a newspaper company or whatever it is. I didn't even really know what he was working for, but he was chosen by God. Okay, so he was like zapped by lightning, and all these little kind of what you would expect. Okay, cliche type things, right? And so he goes on in life after getting zapped by lightning, doesn't tell anyone or anything, but he magically starts to just glow randomly. He'll start to glow like a light bulb. Okay,
in the trailer, that his skin would actually glow.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so this is kind of the outline of the beginning of the story, and then he eventually realizes, oh my gosh, God chose me to do something. Okay, and it progresses on, and he realized that God shows up to him, and now God in the movie or in the TV show, whatever you want to call it, is, if you can picture every white grandma in the U.S. and form it into be one person. That is what God looked like.
Yeah, an amalgamation of all the white grandmas on earth.
Yes,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is what God was. And now God shows up to this man and says, yes, I chose you, and you need to send out a message, all right? And that's all God says. You need to share my message. And then God, poof, magic goes away, and yada, yada, yada. So this person, the chosen person, is then like, well, how do I share this message? And then Satan shows up, and Satan looks like a Karen. Okay, all right, if I can make you truly understand the forces behind this.
I can't dispute that one. Please continue. Yeah.
So this Satan shows up, and her name is Satan Linda, and apparently there's 3 Satans, yada, yada, yada. The movie goes into some weird, tries to be, I don't know.
Apparently Satan's more fleshed out than God in this show.
So,
is that true?
So yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
But so Satan goes and was like, I bet, and now here's where it starts to get really funny, actually. Okay, and this is because this is how the world views kind of Christianity and probably a lot of major religions, because that's just what happens in today's day and age, right? But Satan, then shows up and says, I bet God, let me guess, you think God is all on your side and all these things. And Satan asks, I bet God told you that you were chosen to share some message, but God didn't tell you what message. God didn't tell you how to share that message, and yada, yada, yada. And Satan's, being Satan, being,
trying to cast doubt on
literal devil's advocate, saying, God did all this, and you think God's really on your side, like Satan does, all right? That's, that's actually truthful, okay? Mm-hmm. I thought there was we could give a little bit of credit to this
the
movie.
credit they get is a depiction of Satan as a Karen. Go ahead.
Yes, okay, that's accurate, okay?
Yep.
But, so this goes on and on and on and on, and they start fighting, and what happens is the movie ends so poorly, I cannot tell you how it ended. Who won? I don't know.
What?
Okay, yeah, okay. So again, now there's this fight, all right? Because now, I might have missed this. Did our light just go blue for...
Yeah, it did turn blue.
Okay,
for some
we're
reason.
Not under attack. We're not under attack.
If a Karen walks in that door right now, we're going to have problems. Go ahead.
Okay, anyways, the professionalism here at the Rage.
Yes, yes.
So this person was chosen to share the message that Satan and God, have constantly been in this battle for many, many years, all the way back into literally creation, and yada, yada. So they go on and do all this stuff, and notice how I say yada yada. It is because the movie, God kept saying, yada yada, as to be very vague.
So God sounds like Parker.
Yeah.
All right.
So the God
So
in
Satan
this
is
movie,
Karen, and God is like Parker. There you go.
God kept saying, you got to share this message, yada yada, and all these things. But anyways, okay. So this battle, and Satan was winning, so that's why this person was chosen to share the message that Satan was winning, and scene, okay? That's what this movie was all about. And it does not end.
And if that's not bad enough, I want to reiterate, it stars Melissa McCarthy. Please continue.
And so that's kind of the whole theme or setting of the movie, all right? And what I found to be, as you kind of could pick up already, is that it was very interesting how it went along the beliefs of organized religion. Okay?
Okay. Because you knew they were going to take pot shots at
Yeah.
that. I didn't even see it, and I knew that.
So, I mean, when what I say by organized religion is pretty much every, what you would say, almost credible source of kind of faith around the world. I don't know if credible is the right word there.
Yeah.
But Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, all these things
The major religions,
tend to have the same base, all right, of saying good versus evil and this whole fight and yada yada.
And what that means.
I gotta say it again.
and
yada yada.
Yada yada, yeah.
But so, yes, so there's this fight between good and evil, and they're just making it hilarious and trying to make it be something that it's not, but their depictions of who God is was what really kind of made me realize that this show is trying to actually form a dig. I would not say they were actually trying to dig at religion. I wouldn't say that.
Okay, I'm shocked.
And now here's why. Okay? In this culture that we live in, I will be actually satisfied with anything that produces a spiritual whatnot, all right? The fact that they even mention a spiritual side of life, that's good, okay? The fact that they mention that there is a battle between good and evil, all right? The fact that they use the name Satan and God, that was a plus for me, because normally they say something bad guy versus good guy.
Normally what they would do is make Satan the hero and God the villain. Yeah.
But in this setting, they didn't make Satan the hero, actually. Everyone, they continued to stay on God's side, and I was very shocked about that as well. And so, in all, I would actually say that the message behind the movie was not horrible. Did they get it there in a very bad way? To get the message across, did they use some very odd platforms? Yes.
Are we saying you should go watch this instead of watching the Rage podcast? No.
But what I will tell you is the movie entirely, the message of being on good side was there.
Yeah, and one of the things that I got from here, Parker and I had a kind of a longer conversation about this than we normally have before we start this. And when I watched the trailer and I read a little bit of IMDb and stuff, is how popular this thing apparently is, and how it's kind of, I'm going to say, pseudo-spiritual. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Yeah, and that's the way it came across in the stuff I was reading about it. Again, full disclosure, I haven't seen it. But I think the thing that Parker and I were kind of taken by on this is how it's trying to fulfill the spiritual lane for people. Maybe not. Maybe that's the wrong word. It's filling the spiritual lane for people. I'm not sure that's what they were trying to do. They may have gotten a few things right and a whole bunch of stuff wrong, but how people are so hungry, so starving for anything that has spiritual content in it, they're suddenly gravitating toward this and wondering, well, maybe this is how things work. And I'll tell you, to piggyback on what he's talking about, again, another movie I haven't seen yet was the new Thor movie is out. And there's a whole discussion about gods and things in that too, and what God does and who God is and things. I really think that's representing a hunger in our culture. It's and we're not looking at places where we traditionally have been fed in that way. We're now looking to Hollywood, which, do I have to tell you what a bad idea that is?
Do we have to say why that's wrong?
Yeah, do we have to explain how that's a poor idea? Because it's really a poor idea. And so we would like to address that, because I think as human beings, we have a lot of needs. We have needs for food and water, shelter, clothing, but we also have needs for things like companionship. You're not necessarily going to die if you go a whole day without talking to somebody, but at the same time, you can't live your whole life without
Well,
some kind of connection.
there's four parts of health. There's spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental. All right? Those are kind of the four.
And you have needs around all four of them.
Yeah, those are like the four areas of what it is to health, all right? And there's an outline of what is mentally healthy, okay?
Yeah, and if you allow one of those to not be fulfilled, you'll find a negative way to fulfill it.
Yeah.
And Parker and I are putting forth a hypothesis that shows like this one that we're talking about are fulfilling that for people. I don't know. I don't think the people who made the show intended that to happen.
No, they didn't, because here's what I'll tell you probably what they were intending to happen. What they wanted to was because it was supposed to be like a comedy, right? Clearly, but what the comedy was aspect that was supposed to be there was probably the fact they mentioned God and Satan having this battle between good and evil. That's probably where actually the majority of the comedy came from for most people. But if you're a person kind of a faith and you're watching it, that just seems a part of life's story, right? But to people who have no faith in any being like that, that's where the comedy came from. The comedy came from the fact that there's people who believe there's this fight between good and evil, and that Grandma God can show up and tell you to go spread a message that the fight's being lost to evil, right?
Yeah.
But that's was supposed to be so comedic about this entire show, because it would be appealing to kind of the atheist nation that we live in.
Yeah.
That doesn't believe in anything
and
like
it
that.
comes off as spiritual because we don't do that anymore. And at least obviously not we. I'm talking our culture doesn't value that anymore. So we're allowing one of the four major areas that Parker just mentioned, one of the four major areas of our life to be. We're deciding to starve in that area. And not feed that in a healthy way through spiritual practices and worship and the things we traditionally have done to help with those things. Since a lot of people are neglecting them, they still have those desires, they still have those needs, they still have those unfulfilled pieces of themselves. So they suddenly come across something on Netflix and they watch it and they're very taken by it. And maybe it's not super terrible, but even if it does have Melissa McCarthy in it, I can't get past that. But they're connecting to that piece of it, and even though that's not what was intended. So
it's because human beings realize you have to recognize the fact that spiritual health and spirituality is a part of life, right? That's just a given. Yeah. So when you see a movie title that even has the word God in it, you automatically feel some form of, I'm going to at least check it out, And that's kind of what happened. I read it and I was like, okay, I'll fill my time watching this. But it's interesting because for me, it's not going to change my faith. What it was
right. And the reason it's not, and this is good you brought this up.
Yeah.
The reason it's not going to affect you is you're not starving in the area of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can watch it and say, wow, this is really dumb, and laugh at it and whatever. But somebody who is starving in that area of their life, they're going to get a whole different experience from that show, and that's what
and they still may laugh. All right, it's not going to take the comedy,
but they're not going to laugh ironically like you are.
But what it's going to do is it's going to cause that spiritual side that has been given no attention for however long it may be. It's going to set up some form of movement, and what you're picturing in this scene is a false god. Obviously, I don't think I need to go any more explanation. This movie is nowhere to find your spirituality from, but since we're using God and they're talking in this movie about a spiritual side of life, for those people who have rejected it for so many
or neglected
amount of time, neglected it, it's going to draw them in. It's going to feel something, at least they're going to feel something, because they're going to recognize that is a part of life. And that's
what Parker and I are contending is making the show one. I'm assuming it's something popular on Netflix, or is why it came up in your recommended things. Is that popularity is reflected by the fact that people are just grabbing at anything they can get, and instead of going to the places that traditionally we have gone, they're now finding it in this place, and they're basically starving, and they're eating things of no nutritional value.
Yep.
If you're starving, Twinkies may make you not hungry anymore, but they're not going to nourish you either. And that's what's happening here. People are craving spiritual meat, and they're getting highly processed junk food, and that's not going to satisfy for very long. In fact, and it's not going to be healthy. It's like anything else in your life.
It's more damaging.
Exactly. If you burn up too much of your space, think about what you eat. That's kind of where we're at. Okay, what you eat. You only eat so much. So if you're going to eat this much, and this much is going to be, vegetables and fruit and good things, then not only are you filling yourself with good things, but you're also satisfying a need.
Mm-hmm.
If you take this and fill it up with Twinkies and Little Debbies and stuff and eat that, again, you're not going to be hungry anymore, but you haven't done anything else good for yourself. In fact, you've gone the other direction. So not only have you missed out on something positive, you've actually ingested something negative. And that's what I would contend is going on with this show, is that people have this starving thing, so they're grabbing at something, they're getting a hold of this, and it's not doing anything good for them. And they may laugh at it, but to make spiritual issues a laughing matter when you're not prepared for that, Parker watches it and laugh at it. I got whatever, that's fine. But when you got your person out there who has not cared for their spiritual side, and they go watch it and laugh at it, that trivializes the entire spiritual end of their life. In the same way, you wouldn't want people trivializing, eating. Who needs to eat? I'll just quit. Well, eventually that's going to do things that aren't very good for you. Same thing as this. If you say, I don't need to read my Bible, I don't need to pray, I don't need to worship, I don't need to be connected to a religious body and a group of people that hold me accountable, I don't need that. Well, eventually, all that junk food from things like Netflix are going to end up, you're going to end up having malnutrition in that area of your life. That's the part that concerns me about this, is when the bad stuff starts to take place to the good stuff. Not only are you missing out on the benefits of the actual nutritional things, but you're also filling yourself with garbage. And I think that's a dangerous thing, because that leaves you having malnutrition in that area of your life. And as you well know, anything that's not well fed and well cared for, it's not going to function. Mm-hmm. If you don't exercise and you don't eat well, or you don't sleep right, or you don't take time to do these things, your body's going to fall apart. Well, your spiritual side is the same thing. If you're not taking time to read and grow and develop and have positive interactions and be a part of a community, you're not going to grow, and that area is going to continue to be neglected. So we get a lot of mileage out of this show.
Let's kind of do a recap of what was been said. Okay, Netflix published a TV show that was titled God's Favorite Idiot, and it contains actually quite a bit of spiritual aspects. Okay, for the people who have no spiritual side of life, or who have neglected a spiritual side of life, that watch it, it will become very dangerous for them, right? And what it does is it produces people forming their own kind of new religion of saying, oh, maybe God, I'm not saying anyone's going to say, oh yeah, God's old white grandma, okay? Mm-hmm. That's not what's going to happen, but the contents of it is saying this fight between good and evil, and how do all these things work? That's going to taint someone's mind to where, or in spiritual side, an aspect of life, because that's not how it works.
Well, it's going to be very difficult to overcome that, to say, now I want to take this seriously, because my diet has been making fun of it. Mm-hmm. My diet up to this point has been making fun of it. Therefore, I'm not ready to take this seriously as it should be taken. Parker and I can watch a show like this and make fun of it and laugh, which maybe we'll do that sometime. But, and we would have a good time with it because we're well nourished in that area of our lives. It's not going to bother us. But I'm concerned about people who are not prepared for that and go watch that and allow that to be trivialized.
And I think it's becoming, and the problem is that it's a very popular show. Yeah. Right. And that's
means lots of people are having their spiritual health trivialized.
That's already happening. And this is just one show, but there's also there are several shows that are like this. There's like The Good Place is one of them, where there's people will die and go to some fictional heaven type realm, and all those things that go along with that. That's doing the same thing. It's producing a false, like just how Tim already mentioned, through the nourishment of your spiritual side of life, it's not happening. You're not getting anything nutritious.
Yeah, and if you're programming yourself to laugh at it, it's gonna be tough to turn around and take it seriously as you need to. Mm-hmm. It's just like there are certain things around that we don't we'll make jokes about a lot of things, but there's certain things we don't make jokes about because it's not a laughing matter. Like illness is one I could think of. That's never funny. And because it's something that we should always take seriously. Again, the spiritual side of life, there's some funny parts of it. We laugh in church here all the time, and I'll say Parker and I yuck it up here quite a bit. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we can do that because we have the serious foundation under us to do that. And my concern about it, all these millions of people who are watching this, is the ones that don't have the foundation, that are trivializing something that is very important. Mm-hmm. So that's my concern. So, all right, let me reiterate. He reiterated something. Let me reiterate something. We are not recommending you go watch this. Please don't run out and watch this. If for no other reason, Melissa McCarthy's in it, if I haven't mentioned that yet. And we would not do that to you here at the Race Podcast because we only recommend high-quality things.
Yeah, like the Race
Podcast. So I also would like to say that I'm kind of angry at this show that they stole one of the names we thought about for this podcast.
I feel like we should be getting some claim, but it's all right.
That's right, yeah. I guess God's two favorite idiots here. So, all right. Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for coming out. If you're looking for something to watch on Netflix, we highly recommend you find something else. And appreciate you being here. And take that spiritual life seriously, because if you don't, because of Laughing Matter, you're not going to treat it like you should.
And if you're watching it, you're not watching it because of me.
Have a great day, everybody.